Abhayjeet Singh Sachal is co-founder of Break the Divide. His experiences in the Arctic Circle influenced him and his brother to be one of Canada's youth leaders and voices for climate change activism. His organization has spread to numerous chapters around the world, and his message of cooperation and ally building resonates with his growing network of youth joining the effort. He is a speaker on the topic of climate change at the 2018 Parliament of World Religions.
So thanks for being here for the interview. I heard you were on a panel yesterday with your brother about the climate change. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we're so honored to be here at the Parliament of World Religions. So my brother Sukhmeet and I, we actually co-founded an organization called Break the Divide. So in 2016, I had the chance to travel up to the Canadian Arctic. So the Arctic near the North Pole, I was in Greenland and Canadian territories. And going there, I had an amazing opportunity to interact with people that actually live in the Arctic. And I saw the effects of climate change firsthand. So climate change, it's often talked about as an issue of the future. We hear that sea levels will rise, we hear that animals are going to be affected, but rarely do we understand that climate change has impacts on real people today. So by going up to the Arctic, I saw the melting glaciers, I saw melting ice firsthand. And by seeing that, it really personified the effects of climate change to me. And on top of that, I became very good friends with some of the indigenous people, so the people that call the Arctic their home. So they've adapted to living in this cold climate, and they've been living there for such a long time. And now, as of recently, because of increased carbon emissions in the atmosphere, the climate is changing in the Arctic. So that means sea levels are rising already, and that's changing the traditional way of life. And houses and pipes beneath the surface are actually breaking because the ice is melting unevenly. So because of that, there's so many different issues that I learned about firsthand. So I came back home to my hometown in Vancouver, in British Columbia, in Western Canada, and I was very inspired by this experience. I thought, I had such an incredible opportunity. I'd received a scholarship to go to the Arctic, and I wanted to do something with my experience. I was only 14 years old at the time, and I talked to my older brother, Sukhmeet. So he was 21 at that time, and we kind of collaborated, and we realized that in order to tackle this issue effectively, we could get students that live in the Arctic video calling students that live in the rest of Canada and the rest of the world so that they can see firsthand what climate change is doing. So yesterday at our session at the Parliament of World Religions, that's essentially what we talked about. How when you get youth involved in personal connections to talk about climate change, they're able to understand more about it and then lead to action.
Well, what are some of the things that you're doing with your brother that will raise awareness other than being part of this conference? Have you been doing anything to raise awareness for that?
Absolutely. So through Break the Divide, a major portion of what we do is awareness. So we actually have schools all around the world that talk to one another. They talk about climate change. They talk about different issues that intersect with climate change as well. For example, they talk about how human health occurs in relation to the issues in climate, and they talk about how infrastructure issues are also affected. So by doing so, they're raising awareness of the local climate issues in their specific communities, but then they're also talking about how it impacts them personally. And when students receive that personal connection, they understand more about the issue and they're able to raise awareness about it in their communities. So most recently, it's very interesting, we have a chapter in Cape Town in South Africa. And over there in Cape Town, because of climate change, there's been a drought going on for about 3 or 4 years. And now people living in Cape Town are limited to only using 50 liters of water a day. Now, 50 liters is almost nothing compared to the average Canadian or American that uses 350 liters of water a day. So in comparison, it's such a huge difference. And we wanted to raise awareness about that. So with the youth living in Cape Town now, we're working on a project to create awareness about the issue.
How did you get involved with this conference?
Yeah, so for the Parliament of World Religions, both my brother and I, both Sukhmeet and I, we've spoken at international conferences to talk about Break the Divide. And I've talked about Break the Divide at conferences such as the North American Association of Environmental Educators, where there were 2,000 environmental teachers from across the United States. And now being at this conference, we were invited to speak on behalf of the youth. We wanted to provide a youth perspective in the Power Committee. And in this committee, we're really talking about how youth plays such an important role in interfaith and intercultural dialogue. Because essentially through Break the Divide, our major focus has been working through intercultural dialogue to create change. Yeah.
So how do you feel youth can, like, do you have anything to say to the youth that are watching? How can
Yeah.
they be of change, both in terms of interfaith and climate change? Both of
Absolutely.
them absolutely important. How do you think they can help with this? What is your message to
Absolutely.
them?
Yeah, interfaith is very interesting because through Break the Divide, and we really see that it's so important to identify what makes us all the same, what unifies us. And that's been a major focus of the work that we do. And we see that climate change is also very similar. It's necessary to focus on what unites us in this issue, rather than the differences that we have in our different countries, whether it's Syria or Afghanistan or Canada or Mexico. We all have the same climate goal. We want our planet to be the healthiest as possible so that we can help the people that are living on the world now and for the future. So for all the youth out there, the biggest message is find something that you're passionate about, whether it's public speaking or painting or drawing or anything like that, even if it's sports. You need to pursue that passion in order to create change. And once you're pursuing that passion, don't let anyone stop you. You have to keep going with climate change, with interfaith dialogue, because all these issues are connected. And by pursuing them, you can effectively change the world through that.
Very good. So you were saying the first thing that triggered in you was when you traveled, right?
Yeah.
Is this something that, every youth needs to do, traveling to notice that, or youth are looking around them, they can notice and hope for that change?
Yeah.
How can you trigger that in youth that are watching you today? What are you hoping to gain from?
Yeah, I don't think everyone needs to travel to a different place because there's inspiration all around us. When I was a young kid, I would see the forest around where I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Western Canada, and I would be so inspired by the nature there because I got a personal connection with that.
You didn't want to lose that, right?
Exactly, and I didn't want to lose that. And you look at everywhere around the world, there are things to be grateful for and there are things to improve. So it's important to recognize in your own local context as well, what can we improve in there? And then based on that, youth can find something that they're passionate about within that certain context and then improve that. Yeah.
It's so nice that you mixed both spiritual and
Yeah.
interfaith message with what is around us, because both of them are important. We have to live in a better world in both what's around us and how we live it, right?
Absolutely.
Being unified and living in a better world.
And I think
that's
a major
clean,
portion
right?
of that is finding your own internal drive to do that as well.
Yes.
Because that's a major part of spirituality. And irrespective of any religion, the main tenet is always service to others. How do you make the world a better place? And I think that's something that unites all of us. So environmentalism, interfaith dialogue, they're definitely all connected.
For
So
sure.
when we focus on what brings us together and what internally drives us to do well, whether it's youth out there or even people that are of a different generation, with different generations working together by talking about climate change, by talking about these different issues, conversation is the first way. It's the first step in creating that change, and then we can start collaboratively working together.
Through the efforts that you have done so far, which is amazing, can you spot any personal experience that you yourself has experienced that touched your heart?
I think there's two things that really drive me. There's this one experience that I can describe right now. I was in an ice fjord in Greenland. So an ice fjord is a place where you can see icebergs. It's like kilometers of ice stretched out. And as far as you look, all you can see is ice. And it's absolutely beautiful. So I was on my Arctic expedition with 200 people from around the world. So from different walks of life, different faiths, different cultures. And when we were at this ice fjord in Greenland, we all went silent for a moment. So we all stopped talking, no one was talking at all. And we could literally hear the icebergs melting.
Oh.
Yeah, so we heard thousands of drops of the ice going into the purest water on Earth. It was a breathtaking experience. It was also very humbling to see that in relation to the entire world, our contributions make such a big impact on what's going on in the world. And that was an experience that really humbled me, and it allowed me to realize that what's going on in the world affects everyone. Because I saw firsthand and I heard with all my senses were involved in that experience. And a really second experience is the interactions that I have on a daily basis. I've seen that through my work in Break the Divide and other initiatives that really, as a youth leader, I found that the most powerful thing is making someone else smile. And when you create that smile on someone else's person, it feels so good yourself as well. Yeah,
Definitely true.
yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.